It's been a while since I've been as invested in the gameplay of a game as I am with Granblue Relink. It might be some of the most fun RPG combat I've played since Xenoblade 2, with a lot of customization and interesting playstyles between all the different characters, and the multiplayer content is absolutely fantastic. And as such, I really wanted to make some videos on this game, and the first one I decided to make is a character-specific guide for Rosetta because I have been having a lot of fun playing her, and I think her playstyle is very unique, and probably a bit harder to use optimally for most. And as such, in this video, I wanted to talk about Rosetta, discuss the general playstyle and setup for the characters that I use and that I think is probably going to be most optimal, and showcase some practical use of her in some of the harder raid fights. If you enjoy guide content for RPGs and are interested in more potential Relink guides from me, or if you're interested in Xenoblade content since I usually make that, make sure to subscribe to the channel because it does help me out so much. And if you're on this video because of that usual Xenoblade content and have no idea what this game is, get it, it's really fun. So let's start with build and setup, then we'll get more into playstyle. A couple things to note first is that Rosetta is a bit of a zone control type character where you essentially are planting roses that are then used to attack enemies and offer support effects to your allies. You can have up to 3 of these at once and they can level up to level 4, giving them a wide radius and more powerful buff effects. Rosetta will attack 1 to 4 times depending on level each attack interval, so higher level roses will give more damage. You can replant these roses anywhere by pressing Y, and by targeting an enemy, you can place it on top of where the enemy currently is. Replant priority will just be the order of the 3 were originally placed. The roses keep their level as long as you don't die, otherwise they will all disappear and reset to level 1. So compared to other characters, you do get punished very hard for dying, so that is something to keep in mind if you do want to play this character. By using a regular attack into a combo finisher, you can set up a defense buff for your team that maxes out at 20%. By using 2 regular attacks into a combo finisher, you can set up a health regen buff. And by using 3 attacks into a combo finisher, you set up to a 20% attack buff for the team. Your team does not have to be on the roses for these buffs to apply, however. As long as you have the buff activated, they will get it no matter where they are on the field as long as the roses are down. Those are the very basics, so let's get into more detail. The setup portion of this video is likely going to be more focused on in-game builds more than anything, but the general principles and what you will want to go for will still apply. For actual weapon, the Terminus weapon is going to be the most optimal if you have it, which is a big if since it's a pretty rare drop from the final weapon, but if not, I was getting by just fine on everything and was able to clear the final Proud mission multiple times just running the Rose Crystal Knife, which is the critical hit rate and critical damage weapon that Rosetta has. The reason the Terminus weapon is the best is mainly because of Catastrophe, one of the bonus effects of the weapon, which increases your attack a massive amount and your damage cap by 100% as long as your health is under 45,000. And when fully awakened, it also increases all of your sigils by 1 level, and gives another 5 levels of damage cap. The reason damage cap is such an important stat is because it's the absolute best way you have to increase your maximum damage. You probably noticed I have 4 other damage cap sigils equipped right now, and that is not for no reason. I have this to cap out the value entirely because base damage caps in this game are actually pretty low. Each character has different caps on different hits and art, so it's probably based on a multiplier, but regardless, you really want to be running the max value of this to get 250% more damage at level 65. Catastrophe being an effect that increases this even further as long as your health is below this 45k mark is the main reason it's such a strong effect. In addition to that crazy attack boost, it also helps a lot, especially with your rose damage. So, most of my sigils here have an additional effect on them. That's what the plus next to the sigil means. It means it has 2 traits on it instead of just the normal 1. Very highly recommended that you do that. I also recommend leveling up your sigils to level 15 if you can. Farming Azurite Splendors off Prismatic Slimes is the easiest way to do this over material grinding, but if you want a material grind, you can do that as well. As long as you're hitting important damage thresholds, it doesn't matter too much, and even if you're running with just level 11 sigils, it should be fine regardless. You'll still get a lot of benefit out of it. My first damage cap 5 plus is the only one not maxed, and it has Uplift as its bonus effect on it. This increases your Skybound charge art gauge gain. Pretty useful for ending fights a little bit quicker and skipping phases and just being able to use your specials a little bit faster in fights. I like this effect a lot just because of that. I have Potion Hoarder on the next damage cap 5. This is an incredibly useful ability. It gives you a ton of additional potions that you can use in combat, allowing you to heal your allies more, heal yourself more, and it also combos really well with one of the other effects that I have that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Very highly recommended for keeping yourself healthy, though. It's just so many extra potions, and it is so beneficial. Rose's Awakening is her exclusive sigil that offers 2 unique effects you cannot get anywhere else. The first of these is Rose's Blooming. This reduces the interval between your rose attacks by 30%, allowing your roses to do about 30% more damage, which is really nice with their basic attacks. Rose's Profusion will boost the strength of your buff effects by an additive amount. So instead of just a 20% attack boost, you now do a 30% attack boost for your entire party. Instead of a 20% defense boost, you now grant a 30% defense boost. So this is a really nice effect to have. It increases the strength of your buffs, allows your party to have more survivability or more damage if they really need it. So a very useful sigil to have. Definitely recommend equipping it. You can get it from Transmarveling. Up next, I have critical hit rate. This is a very good effect to have. It increases your critical hit rate by 20% at level 15. Added to the amount, critical hits are really good. You do a lot of damage with them. Aegis increases the value of my maximum HP. This is very nice to have just for the extra survivability. As long as I'm under 45,000 health, I'll still get the bonus from Catastrophe, so running one Aegis along with a different ability works just fine. I'm going to skip past Glass Cannon for now because I want to talk about that and Potent Greens at the same time. Next up, I have another damage cap up, and it also has the Nimble Onslaught effect. This gives you more invincibility when you perfect dodge, in addition to some more Skybound Art charge gain and skill cooldown, which is really useful on Rose. You definitely want to be using skill cooldown if you can. I have another damage cap 5+ with quick cooldown. This gives more skill cooldown, as you can imagine. I have Tyranny 5+. So Tyranny is what allows me to have my health under 45,000 health, and also gives another big damage boost, because this will lower your max health in addition to granting a big damage increase. Basically allowing me to hit that damage cap even without any additional effects here, as long as I have my other positive damage effects equipped. And Cascade. This seems to be bugged currently because I have not noticed much of a positive effect from it. I hear there's an internal cooldown from it, but I feel like it's not working as effectively for Rose as it could be, so you might be able to replace the sub-trait with something else. But if it works properly, you should be able to get skill cooldown when you attack enemies based on whatever the internal cooldown is, allowing you to use your skills more often. Let's get past that. I have Stamina. This is the final thing, allowing me to basically hit damage caps on absolutely everything as long as I'm at max health, because it boosts your attack by a pretty crazy amount as long as you're at 100% health. Very, very good effect to have. I'm running another quick cooldown along with it to get more skills up faster, because a lot of her damage comes from skills. Link Together 5+. This is a very good effect. Link Together is really good for your entire party because it gives you more link gauge gain. Link time is broken in combat. It gives you more chain burst damage, and increases your link attack damage even further as well. So a lot of really positive bonus effects just in one slot here. So a very efficient effect there. So speaking of very efficient and good effects, we have War Elemental. This is probably potentially the best effect in the entire game, just because of how universally useful it is. All attacks count as the superior element, basically meaning all of your attacks are going to do 20% more damage no matter what. And this bypasses the damage cap, basically meaning you do not have to worry about the cap at all with this. This is just a very efficient slot to get 20% more damage. You should absolutely have this equipped if you have it. You can obtain it from Curios. If you've looked at other guides for other characters, or have just been looking around for the most optimal builds, you probably noticed that most people are running supplementary damage in some of their sigil slots. So why am I running Glass Cannon 5 and Potent Greens instead? Well, the main reason is that supplementary damage does not apply to the actual roses that you plant, meaning you actually lose a lot of benefit from using it on Rosetta. Supplementary damage would normally add an additional 20% damage to your attacks just in the form of an additional damage roll, which can be really nice because it bypasses the damage cap, but unfortunately for Rosetta herself, it does not work very efficiently because of it not applying on the attacks that your roses deal out. I really wish it worked on her, but unfortunately it doesn't. So because of that, I am running Glass Cannon. This gives you an additional 30% damage cap, which is nice to increase your damage further, and increase your attack another 30%. However, there is a negative effect that you get inflicted with Dizzy every time you are hit. Fortunately, there is a way to bypass this. Potent Greens allows you to cure your Dizzy, because when you have Potent Greens, every time you use a green potion, you basically cure all of your debuffs. So if you get hit, you just use a green potion, combine with Potion Hoarder, you have a ton of green potions, so you're able to cure your debuffs, and you're able to go on your merry way and get a nice free 30% damage boost because of that. Or if you're really good at the game, just don't get hit, and you don't even have to run Potent Greens. You can even run another sigil in this place instead. And the final effect I have is Guts, which is on the Glass Cannon 5. I definitely recommend having Guts in some capacity on Rose, because you get punished very hard for dying. So just being able to live one hit at 1 health is very nice, because you'll be able to get a lot of benefit out of not having to replant your roses and not having to set everything up again. You get punished really hard for dying, so always run Guts no matter what. It's definitely better than running Auto Revive, in my opinion. So let's talk about her skills here. So Rosetta has 8 total skills. 4 of these are more supportive, and 4 of these deal damage. So I'm running the more damage-based setup here because I like doing a lot of damage and doing DPS. Her most important skill is most likely Spiral Rose. This is her main damage skill as far as what's going to be off cooldown pretty often and what's going to be doing a lot of damage and leveling up your roses a little bit quicker because of how many times it hits. Basically, Rose will spawn roses from the roses that she plants, and these will hit multiple times, and it'll also hit 10 times from her main body itself, which is important to remember for later. This is a really good attack. I definitely recommend running this basically at all times, especially because it's one of her lower cooldown abilities. Iron Maiden. This is a pretty strong effect. I feel like people really underrate it. The tooltip kind of just straight up lies to you here. So basically how this works is that any attack that comes directly from Rose's body will allow all of your plants to auto-attack every time it hits. This combos extremely well with Spiral Rose as long as Rose is next to the enemy, because it basically allows all of your plants to attack 10 times each for every hit of Spiral Rose that you do, so you get 30 more hits of Spiral Rose when you do this. As a quick damage comparison I have shown on screen here, you should be able to see that you get about 1 million more damage here based on the 33,000 auto attack, or 33k auto attack times about 30 here. Very, very good. It also applies on your combo finisher, not just your basic attacks. So Iron Maiden is much better than you would expect. It's really good to use in Link time as well, because you get a lot more Spiral Rose uses out of that. You can get potentially up to 90 attacks at once from your plants there. Very, very good to have. Very good ability. I think it's very underrated. And Stout Heart's a really nice bonus effect as well, just to kind of ignore enemies attacking you for a little bit at least. Rose Tycoon is your main repositioning tool. Absolutely have this at all times because it is going to basically allow you to lock back onto enemies without having to press the Y button to replant them. This is a very good effect. Just because of that, it would be 100% recommended even if you didn't have the poison effect. How the poison effect works, if you want to know, is that basically it's going to do 1 to 1.5% of the enemy's maximum health, or 65,000 health, basically, if you have all the cap damage up. Whichever is the lower amount, essentially. So, 1 to 1.5% maximum, it's based on enemy's max health, or 65% maximum. Or 65,000 damage maximum, sorry. So, very useful to have just for the repositioning, though. You definitely want to have this just so you can always lock onto the enemies. Sillage, I do like this skill, but it's just unfortunately not worth using a slot on. It'll plant a Rose where she stands and allow you to dodge backwards. Good for having iframes and just dodging enemy attacks, but it just doesn't really do anything otherwise. Mesmerize is completely useless. Don't ever run this. It doesn't really work on boss enemies at all, and a lot of bosses have AoEs anyway, so don't even use this. Rose Barrier can be pretty useful just because it allows you to have a lot of damage reduction for your entire party. So if you want to run Rose more supportive, you can run this. Your allies have to be standing on your Roses to have this, though, as far as I am aware. But I don't really recommend running this if you want to get the most benefit out of Rose, since a lot of people are going to have defensive abilities anyway to keep themselves alive, so you probably aren't going to need this most of the time. Bouquet actually is a really useful ability. Some people run this over Iron Maiden against more mobile bosses just because you'll get more use out of this, because it allows you to reposition your Roses again. It also restores your health and raises the levels by 1, and it also can instantly plant 3 Roses if you don't have them planted at the start of battle. So this can be a really useful utility ability. If you want to run this over Iron Maiden in certain fights, it can definitely be useful to do that. I don't personally like doing it because I like doing as much damage as possible, but this is a good ability, and it also has a heal on top of everything else, so pretty good art. Definitely worth running in certain situations, at least. The final art she has is Lost Love. This is your most powerful nuke attack. It basically explodes all of your Roses that you currently have planted and does massive amounts of damage, over 600,000 with max damage cap. And so basically you're going to be doing close to 2 million damage. Very, very strong art. The negative is that it is going to explode your Roses and basically make them start at level 1, but it does instantly replant them. Definitely use this when the boss is not going to be moving for a while, because you'll be able to level up your Roses much instantly again, so you're not going to lose too much from using it then. But it's definitely something you're going to want to kind of situationally pick and choose when to use to make sure you're not wasting it, because if this whiffs, you just lost a ton of burst damage. Very good art, though. Definitely run, even with the longer cooldown. So the final thing to talk about is your masteries. Obviously, you're going to want all your masteries maxed, but specifically over masteries is something that can be pretty random. So what you're specifically looking for is going to be skill damage cap up, normal damage cap up, and Skybound Art damage cap up. Those are going to increase your damage as much as possible, and then you're going to be looking at critical hit rate up and maybe attack up. Critical hit rate up is extremely useful because with the right setup, you can get 100% critical hit rate with only 1 critical up sigil. Unfortunately, I only got 16% instead of the maximum of 20%, so I'm only sitting at 96% here, which is still really, really good, don't get me wrong. Normal attack damage up is probably going to be better than Skybound Art damage cap up if you can only choose one of those, but you're definitely going to want skill damage cap up because that's where the big majority of a lot of our damage is going to come from. So, I really like the bonuses I have currently. I'm probably going to want to reroll eventually, though, because I'm missing normal damage cap up, and that's still a lot of damage from your roses that you're going to be missing otherwise. But for now, this is still a really good overmasteries. So if you have something similar to this, you should be good to go. And you don't have to be perfectly optimal. You can still have something similar to this and still be just fine. So with all of that done, let's finally take a look at more practical combat situation. This is going to be the final raid, so if you are worried about spoilers or anything like that, click off the video now. So I chose to show off this particular fight because, one, I didn't get hit the entire time, so I feel like that's pretty beneficial as far as showing off how Glass Cannon can be beneficial if you don't get hit. And two, because I feel like it's a good job of just showcasing like how you want to play as Rose a lot of the time. So early on, you're going to want to plant roses, especially really early on in the fight, so you can get those rose levels up immediately. That's the first priority in any kind of combat scenario. You want to plant your roses, make sure that you're getting level 4 as fast as possible. In a fight like this where there's ads, it's a little bit easier. You can have your other allies take the cannons, especially, so you can plant your roses and get them leveled up. And you should be good to go. I definitely recommend that if you are playing as Rose, you need to be someone fighting the ads because you need to level up your roses. Do not take the cannons. You're going to lose a lot of benefit if you do that. So compared to other characters, because she has a lot of AoE and because it takes a while to plant roses sometimes and can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to get them in the proper position in certain combat scenarios, she likely will not be hitting the upper tiers of DPS compared to some other characters, but she is a lot of fun to play and she does have a lot of nice utility to offer to a team regardless. So, specifically in this fight, what I am doing is I am not using my skills right now because I want to have them all up for when Bahamut crashes here. That way I can immediately reposition with my Tycoon ability. When you know how a boss moves or when it's about to be vulnerable, you want to save Tycoon so you can immediately reposition all 3 roses and just kind of go ham on them afterwards. So, this fight was recorded before I kind of had tested Spiral Rose and Iron Maiden interactions in more detail. Otherwise, I would have used Iron Maiden before Spiral Rose to get a million more damage here. But you can see here just kind of how you can wail on him here with all of your combos, and you can see I'm basically hitting damage cap on everything, even with all of the damage cap boosters I have, so there's definitely not a lack of damage here. I'm still doing a ton of damage, and once you have your roses up, you easily do a lot of damage. I feel like the dummy tests do not really showcase how well Rose does damage because you have to waste a lot of time planting roses at the start of the fight, and in the score attacks especially, poison doesn't even work properly, so you lose a lot of damage from that as well, and you also juggle the enemy, so you lose a lot of damage from that as well, and all in all, everything could be a lot better to showcase her proper DPS, but regardless, you can still do a lot of damage with Rose, even if you're not going to be hitting the big numbers on the score attack like you might see with other characters. So in this fight in particular, he'll come back here after he uses his first Skyfall. You want to get to that 80% phase change. You want to guard that claw attack as well when it happens after he goes up to the side of the ship there. And from here, it's kind of just a waiting game. He's going to summon more DPS check crystals. I'm once again not going to use my roses here or Tycoon here to reposition because I want to save my skills for when he crashes into the ship again. And our party member gave us invincibility here, so I didn't even bother evading that one attack there because we didn't really have to. And once the second crystal is gone, I'm once again going to reposition with Tycoon. And I'm going to explode my roses and then immediately use Spiral Rose afterwards so I can level up my roses again. You can see just the massive amount of burst damage that exploding gives. One other thing to note is that you can do here is after exploding, you're probably going to have a Link attack. You do not want to cancel your animations with Link attack. You want to use Link attack before using something like Spiral Rose, because otherwise you'll not do any damage with Spiral Rose from Rose's body herself. The plants will still do damage, but the roses that come out of her body itself will not do damage if you get animation cancel out of it or move out of Spiral Rose. So you want to keep Spiral Rose going as much as possible here. So one thing I do in particular in this fight is use my special when he's about to get up to make sure that we can kind of keep him combo locked for even longer here. And this will also build up Link Gauge so we can kind of end the fight as soon as we get past the next DPS check here. So he's about to use Supernova, which is his big special move soon. But it's pretty easy to avoid, so it shouldn't really be a big issue. So we get a damage cap full burst here, I believe, which is really nice, especially because of all the damage I am outputting. I don't think you can go higher than that. I don't know if it's something that's a visual indicator or not. It might be something that you actually can go higher than, and it's just a visual indicator that's damage cap, but regardless, we still get a ton of damage out of that combo there, and we'll be able to use one more near the end of the fight after using Link Time. So after this, Supernova is going to be the final DPS check, where he's going to summon more crystals. If you want to be safe, you can use Tycoon and Spiral Rose on these just to make sure that you kill them, and you should still be fine because Link Time will be up shortly after that, so you'll be able to get your cooldowns back much quicker after that. So against more mobile enemies, where they're moving around often, you have to replant roses with the Y button. You might want to have Bouquet, as I said, instead, but you'll be missing out on a lot of DPS. If you basically, you kind of just want to understand how bosses move and when they're going to be vulnerable before using your repositioning abilities and before using your strong damage abilities, because that's going to give you the most benefit. So in a fight like the Ice Primal, who moves around all the time, you'll have a much tougher time with it because a lot of her damage comes from enemies staying stationary and being within her Rose's radiuses. But as long as you're kind of smart about when to use your strong damaging abilities and when to use Tycoon to reposition, you'll still get a lot of benefits. So that's kind of the most important thing to learn when playing this character, in my opinion. I really like the playstyle, as I said, but going back to this fight in particular, you want to destroy all those orbs because that'll make sure that these crystals don't have a barrier shield around them. So I go ahead and use Tycoon here just to make sure that we kill the crystals. I mean, I probably did not have to, but I just did it to be safe, just as a precaution there. So most everything in this fight is pretty easy to avoid when you know the patterns. Guarding works really well in this fight against a lot of abilities. I feel like people underrate guard in this game as well, when it's just such a nice move to just take no damage at all. I feel like it's a little bit broken. I feel like it kind of undermines the value of dodge in some ways just because of how good guard can be. You can see in Link Time here, I'm just my main strategy for this was just spamming Tycoon and Spiral Rose whenever they're available because they have really short cooldowns in Link Time, and Lost Love when I had it up. My plan initially was used Iron Maiden after everything was over and I had no more cooldowns left, so I didn't end up wasting it, quote unquote. But now that I know how the interaction with Spiral Rose works, I would have definitely used that at the start of Link Time now to get a lot more damage out of my 3 Spiral Roses during Link Time. You can get a lot of benefit if you do it that way, so that is something to keep in mind and remember to do when you do this fight. Because you're probably going to be grinding this fight a lot if you want to get the weapons on everyone, or at least on Rose. So the final section here, I've almost got Skybound Art again. I'm just 1% away, and my other allies are close as well, so we're pretty much fine on this DPS check here. I go ahead and use it, and the fight's basically over after this. So yeah, this game is a lot of fun. I really find Rose's playstyle to be really fun to play. As long as you kind of understand Rose repositionings and how her cooldowns work and everything like that, you should be just fine. I don't think she's too terribly complex to play, but it can be a little bit more daunting for probably beginners that just want to wail on characters with melee characters. And honestly, sometimes I'm the same way. I like playing melee characters too, but this is... I really just fell in love with this playstyle, and I haven't really seen any guides or anything showing how to play her effectively, so I kind of wanted to be the first to kind of make an effective guide for her. So if there's any other things to note, I don't know if everything I have equipped currently is super optimal. Like, some of the sigils can definitely be more optimized, and you might even find that supplementary damage ends up working okay on her, even if it doesn't apply on her Rose effects. It's just something that is less efficient on her compared to other characters, so... I'm sure there's more room for optimization in the future and more room to do even more damage, but for a week 1 build, I do think this is pretty effective and will probably help you clear all the content with no issues at all. So, yeah. This was definitely not a game I expected to make content for, and I don't even know if I'm quote-unquote good compared to a lot of other people, but I still hope this guide was useful to you and you kind of see how to build the character now and how to kind of approach her playstyle. Like I said, she may not be the absolute highest DPS character, but I find her to be a lot of fun, and I do think she has a lot of positive benefits and can provide a lot to a team with her buffs as well. Since this is my first time making a guide for this game, I don't really know what the demand is, or if people really even want to see guides from me for this game or not, so please leave any feedback in the comments below or any questions you might have, and I'd be happy to answer or make improvements in the future if I make more guides on this game. So... once again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. And please look forward to any future videos I may make. It's been a long time since my last one, so hopefully I'll be more active in the future. I'm feeling the motivation again, at least. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.